everybody, and welcome to the show. Very excited to be here today. Big show today. My buddy Trennis Evans is going to be on. And Trennis, I mean, if you haven't followed Trennis, you should be. He's been involved with every sort of freedom cause you can imagine for quite a long time now. He's just a good guy. He's hardcore. He's 100% MAGA. Just a good guy. And he's going to bring us up to speed on a bunch of different things. Tina Peters and many other things. But before we get to that, I mean, listen, news of the day is still Epstein. This Epstein list is absolutely unforgivable. Let me ask you this. Everybody, including Pam Bondi, has talked about the Epstein files, the client list, the this, the that, all this other stuff. Now all of a sudden, oh, nothing to see here. He committed suicide. We'll show you the tape minus the 60 seconds that matter, and we're going to, just tell you that nothing. There is no client list. There's no anything. We've got millions of hours of video footage. We've got, flight logs. We've got people who've come and go. We got people who this, that, and other. And we've got video footage of what they've done while they're there because all of his properties were wired up. But trust us, there's nothing to see here. This is absurd. And let me ask you something. Do you think the nothing to see here is the slap in the face that we're supposed to be getting? Maybe that's the point of this all, right? Maybe that's the point of this all. Could this be the deep state sending a message? Yeah, MAGA, you're in charge, but we're running the show. That's what this is, right? This is a power play. The Diddy case being thrown the way that it was, and it was thrown. I'm telling you, it's my opinion as a lawyer, this case was thrown. There's no way the lawyers running this case were as incompetent as they appeared. This was thrown. Now you look at Epstein, what's happening there? Same sort of garbage. Same sort of garbage. Don't listen. Are you telling me that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, these guys are smart guys, they're good guys, they're MAGA guys. You're telling me that they don't see something fishy here? You're telling me that they don't suspect that something's been whitewashed, that something's been disappeared? At minimum, let's say that they really don't have anything more than what they're sharing us. They're showing us everything they got. At minimum, that would indicate that something has been deleted, right? Because everybody that looked at this, everybody that's talked about this, everybody that was involved previously knew there was more than what's there. So now all of a sudden it's disappeared, and we're just going to say, yeah, we can't find it, so it must not be there. This is disingenuous, folks. It's disingenuous. These guys know better. Someone told them we're going to stop with this because we can't go any farther. I don't believe there's any chance, and I don't believe that any sane person would ever believe that what we're seeing is all there is to it, right? I don't believe there's any other thing. It's just obvious. So, listen, let me show you this. I'm going to share this with you guys real quick, and we'll get into this later. But so this is from the DOJ. This is Bondi declassifying this back around her infamous folder drop. And here's the thing. There's the evidence list, flight logs, contact book, masseuse list. Looks like a conspiracy to me. Looks like everybody's investigating the conspiracy. She mentions the co-conspirators. What were they conspiring to do? I mean, if they're conspirators, they must have been conspiring to do something. By the way, if you click on the evidence list, here's what you get. See the blank screen? It won't load today. I wonder why that is, right? I wonder why that is. There's a lot of nonsense occurring here, and nothing that's occurring is genuine or honest. And we got to ask who and why. And Pam Bondi does not get a pass on this. She does not. It's her job to figure out what's going on. She's in charge of the FBI. She's in charge of the Justice Department. She's in charge of the whole thing. She is the Attorney General. She needs to be held to account on this. She needs to get to the bottom of this. She needs to figure out who did what. It is her job to not allow these child rapists to go free. And that's what we're talking about here, is people who raped children. It is not okay. We cannot let this go. We cannot forget this. This needs to come up again and again and again and then. And if I may be so bold as a big fan of President Trump, he's where the buck stops. If he needs to call some people to account on this, he needs to hold people's feet to the fire. He needs to say, no, listen, whoever deleted this data, whoever made this evidence disappear, we're going to investigate and we're going to find out if one shred of evidence has disappeared, people need to go to jail. And that SDNY that wouldn't release Epstein files for however long, you telling me that nothing was being deleted during that period? You think that was just what they were just holding it for just because they wanted to? Come on, folks. We're not stupid here. We know better. Anyways, we'll get to more of that later in the show. But for right now, I want to remind y'all, please support us. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Please become a monthly donor, $20 a month, whatever you can give. If you can't, just give whatever you can give. We're grateful for anything. We appreciate your support. We love you guys. Whatever you can do to help us, we appreciate and are grateful for. So please, GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Also, don't forget to go to TomRenz.com. You got to type TomRenz.com. You can't search Tom Renz. You just get hit pieces. Go to shop, check our partners and affiliates, and check them all. Block Trust IRA, wonderful if you want to add crypto to your retirement accounts. It's official there. They actually do retirement accounts and real things, not just random, meme coin garbage. Always check out Dulce Sweetener. And today, don't forget to check out right here. Listen, Earth Harmony is a wonderful, wonderful product line. I met him through Ed Group's company, Global Healing. And if Ed's company is good with these guys, I know they're good. They have some wonderful products. They got methyl blue. They got a bunch of different things. Make sure you're checking these guys out. Earth Harmony, wonderful thing. Use our link and use RENS10 to get 10% off today. Great product line and great company. So please support them. All right. Without further ado, let me bring on my friend Trennis Evans. How you doing today, sir?
Tom, I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me. I love listening to your intro there, talking about the Department of Justice, the Attorney General's office. And it's just a we the people time. And I think President Trump, we elected that man. We believe in that man. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that the buck stops at President Trump, 2020 election, Epstein files. We the people want answers. I'm tired of being told, listen, it's too much for you to see, or this is too much for all of us to understand, because we're intelligent. The people, the base that voted for Donald Trump, the base that supports the MAGA movement, because we want to make America truly great again. And we can't do that when people are allowed to operate in the shadow. We can't do that when we become subjects that aren't worthy of the viewing of evidence and information. We, the people, elected President Donald J. Trump for the 47th presidency, 45th and probably 46th for that matter. We elected that man because he's a leader, and the leadership is what we need from him now and today, to urge Pam Bondi, or to, implore that Pam Bondi must release this evidence. We heard too long Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi talk about getting to the bottom of matters. We heard too long that we were going to see the evidence, that the Epstein files are going to be released, and that was going to be released, and we were going to see these things in our history as we know it today, the living history of today, would be exposed for people to see. I don't care where the chips fall. I don't care who was there. I don't care who was guilty. I don't care who was harmed, if they're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian. And I think the American people feel the same way. Tom, you and I have talked about this. We feel that way. And we talk to a lot of people at shows and events and around this country. And I know how the American people feel. I listen to them, and you and I sit and talk to them in the hallways and outside events and at tables. We know where their hearts and heads are. And we, the people, are asking for that action, that information to be made public. And where the chips fall, the chips fall.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem, right? At the end of the day, if we can't trust them to give us the truth, how can we trust them to do anything? We can't trust them with anything, right? You don't trust liars. And when people lie to you, which is what this is, really, I mean, to suggest that there's no evidence of a network, when their own words, their own evidence, their own data, for years, we've talked about the Epstein sex trafficking network, the child trafficking, the things that this guy did to the rich, the powerful, the elite. I mean, they call it the Lolita Express for a reason. This is absurd. And to suggest otherwise, it's a disservice to we the people that have fought so hard to get Donald Trump in, to give him an opportunity to do these things. It's a disservice to those of us that are loyal to MAGA. And, at the end of the day, I don't think Trump can't possibly be okay with what's happening here. But the thing that people I don't think understand is that if you're Donald Trump, The demands on your time are so obscene. I mean, this guy is the busiest guy on the planet. He's
Yeah.
working his tail off, and you can see where Trump's working because it's going well, but you can see where his minions are interfering. And then the DOJ, they're not getting it done. I'm sorry, but we don't see not one person behind the Russia collusion, behind the 2020 election, behind any of these. I mean, these are literally things that could rise to the level of treason, some of these things. Not one person of substance has been charged with anything, nothing. If you're a blue collar criminal, meaning that you're not rich and connected and you're a criminal, you go to jail. They go right after you. I mean, they'll bust these low life child sex trafficking rings right and left. But if you're the Epstein list, if you're rich and elite, we're going to turn a blind eye to it. If you're Tina Peters, you can rot in Colorado. But if you're, if you're a Democrat who is behind the steal of the 2020 election or J6, we're just going to pretend you don't exist.
Tom, I've got a question. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell? Why is she in jail? What is she in prison for if there was no crime?
Yep.
She operated alone, right? Is that what we're saying that? And
Yeah.
there was no clients. There was nobody taking part in these absurd and abusive actions, affronts to everything that anyone in Western civilization would hold dear, right?
Yeah.
The only people that seem to be okay with child rape is Islamists, and people are afraid to say that, by the way. And we, the people, need to not be afraid to step right out and say Islamists is a child rape organization, and I'm not the Islamists. I'm not supporting them, and I'm going to call them for what they are. And people don't like it, and they're going, "Oh, well, I'm going to be labeled," or "I'm going to." That's what they do. That's how they silence you. This is how that alt-left crew, globalists, etc., do it. But again, Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison because she was the madam to a child sex trafficking operation. Who the hell were the clients? You mean to
That's
tell
it.
me you know anyone that should be arrested? We don't know any of these people. Tom, the only thing that I can go on here, the only thing that I could even fathom to rationalize is that they're waiting to pull this plug in a fashion and time where it's going to drop and it's going to be extremely destructive to the entirety of the Democrat Party just ahead of the elections, that they don't have time. Now, look, I don't like the political lawfare side of this, but think about this strategically. This is the only thing I'll go into. Strategically, I could see a pathway that some people would say, listen, let the Democrats have their candidates, let them win their primaries, let them do what they need to do, complete the primaries. And then these people, after it's all said and done, the primaries are over, then the people that are accountable, then you go after them. I don't like that method. I don't
No.
like it for what it is. I will say, but that's the only strategy that I could even see for the fact that there's not a client list and we're not going after these people at this time, right here and now, or the 2020 election matter. I don't know. That's the
Well,
best I got for you. So I
here's the
hope somebody
problem.
marks this video and says that, because if that's what happens, that's why I think it happened.
Well, and I've heard that, and I've heard and thought that theory through. The problem is, though, is let's say you're waiting. Well, you don't come out and show fake video that is 60 seconds missing. You don't come out and disavow that there's anything there. You don't come out and pretend that nothing's, hey, there's nothing to see here. I mean, you don't need to discredit your own argument if you're going to do that. You just stay quiet and say, listen, we got nothing to say right now. And let them sweat it a little bit. But in the meantime, the problem, particularly with the Epstein list, right? So the 2020 election is long since passed. And I mean, you could argue that going after the guys behind it would impact the next election if you do it too early. But with the Epstein list, there's another problem, and that is the fact that this was a blackmail network, and the whole purpose of it was to control the rich, the powerful, and the elite. And some of those people potentially have national security clearance. I mean, there's a lot of people who were very, very highly placed that had high levels of national security clearance that are purported to be on the list. So here's the problem. What we just did was we made a statement to all those guys. Listen, there's nothing we can do. So that blackmail ring, whoever has that data now, whether it's our allies or our enemies, that blackmail ring continues, and they continue to pump our people for more information, to do nefarious things, to undermine the president. It creates a threat to national security that you continue to put this on hold. So you want to hold off politically for an election case, okay. But the Epstein list, to me, is a blackmail thing that has very, very big national security implications. And holding off on that is irresponsible because, what does that lead to? What's going to happen? What's happening behind the scenes because the right people are controlled in the right ways? I don't think that there is a justification. I think that what they're doing is a threat to national security. And I think it's an absolute abdication of the duties that you have as Attorney General to turn such a blind eye to this, but she did the same thing in Florida. And I'm sorry, I've tried to give Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt. She's on Fox News every 5 minutes talking about people keying a Tesla, but she doesn't give a damn about people who are potentially selling national security secrets because they're blackmailed by the Epstein ring.
Tom, on that same line of thinking, right? This is something that I find incredibly discouraging. You were on this topic just a minute ago where you said, if Trennis Evans walks into the Capitol building, he's going to go to prison, right? If the average American breaks the law, if somebody keys a Tesla, these people are held accountable. You mean to tell me out of 535 members of Congress, these are all the most shining, sterling examples of good Americans?
Yep.
The people that are worth 29 million and 189 million and all these insane numbers on $179,000 a year salary. All of these people are good people. Or is it that if we, do we have some kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod agreement behind the scenes that we won't prosecute these people because if we prosecute theirs, they'll prosecute ours. They went after Trump. He won. That we're going to be past that. The MAGA era will end, and we'll have a new, we'll have something else with someone else, and it'll be a new thing, and people will forget this, and it's just going to be a blip on the radar, a speed bump in American politics. I don't think I see it that way, Tom. I'm going to tell you that I've been telling people for a long time. I listen closely. I hear the tenor of the American public. I know where they stand. I hear the heightened emotion in this. I hear the distress in their voice, the disturbing feelings that they're in. And that what emanates from that is that people are frustrated at a time like never before. And it's not just the right and it's not just the left. It's everyone in the country is frustrated with American politics. They're frustrated with the American judiciary. They all recognize it to be a captured operation, that the judiciary is a disaster. It's an affront to justice, if anything, at this point. We have activists under robes in terms that are becoming almost cliche at this point. Reality states, we the people. I asked this question, Chris Ann Hall and I were in a little constitutional debate the other day about something. My point to her was, what happens when the people on both sides of the aisle, you hit critical mass, that the distrust and disfavor of the government is so high, 70, 80% of America says, I don't trust you. And if you walk into a room full of Democrats and ask them if the elections are free and fair, they're screaming that Trump stole and rigged the election with Elon and this nonsense, right? They're election deniers today. And of course, if it weren't for double standards, Democrats would have no standards whatsoever. But in reality, here we are. You have the Epstein files. You have the issues over and over again. January 6th still not flushed out. We don't know the answers there. We're hearing more and more information. Yet people like Dan Wilson are still in prison, even though a presidential pardon is entered on his behalf, a January 6th defendant. And then a judge, Dabney Friedrich, which was my judge that I've been in front of, and I wrote a motion telling her that she had Trump derangement syndrome. These issues are still happening. It's ongoing damage. Dan Wilson's in prison with a presidential pardon backing him, but Hunter Biden and other people and the people on the select committee, not to just go into J6, but it's a small drop in the bucket. But guess what? American politics and the destruction of the ideology of the constitutional and our rights and the judiciary being some kind of fair and free. American politics is business as usual right now, as far as I can tell. I'm not seeing the mass arrests. I heard Bongino and Ken Patel telling me that we, the people, were going to see things that were going to be justified, that they were going to root out corruption in the FBI. They were going to get rid of these people. There was going to be a mass exodus of these people. And just like we heard Mike Johnson was going to release all the tapes on January 6th, everyone gets into office. Everyone gets into office. They go through these intelligence briefings, and suddenly it's like they come out of there like they've been hypnotized, and everything's fine with the world. Everything's right. Look, if the fruit of the tree is so rotten to the core that it poisons the land around it, I don't care. Drop that fruit. Let us see it. We, the people, need to know, because maybe it is a fact that at this day and age, we need to reform our government. And I believe that to be the case. I believe it's so detestable and so grotesque that it has to be reformed. I don't think you can fix what they like to call bad actors as we soft soap or whitewash things into terminology like bad actors. Believe me, when you're standing in front of a judge, and Tom, you represent people, I've been a defendant. We've, done countless criminal cases for January 6th and now others as a paralegal now and legal investigator. One thing I consistently hear from judges: the depravity, the criminality of what you did, the harm you brought to the American people. But as they're sentencing someone, you hear this all the time. It's a consistent methodology used by judges. But yet, where is that criminality? Where is that depravity? Where are these harsh statements? Where is all this for Democrats? Where is this for Diddy? Where are these things? Why does this not happen? Why is it that only a couple of people somewhere loosely tied to it are held accountable and everybody else seems to walk? Because it's rules for thee and not for me. And that's what
that's
what
the
it
issue.
still is.
That's the issue. And here's what really gets me. It's bad enough that we have this issue with the left and the right. I mean, justice should be blind. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter who you are, justice has to be blind. But what really gets me is the return coats on the Republican side. When the Republicans play this game, we're in power right now. We have a Trump-appointed AG who won't go after anybody, who won't put anybody in jail that's meaningful. Now, I understand some of this may be political timing, but at the end of the day, listen, we've got video of Democrats working with these different groups that were behind J6. We've got video of Nancy Pelosi saying it's her fault that J6 happened. We've got, you've got numerous financial records of guys going into Congress broke and coming out multi-millionaires. I mean, what do you need to see before you say, hey, there's some corruption here and justice is supposed to be blind, and if you're a crook, we're coming after you? Why can't we get a Justice Department? I mean, we have Donald Trump, the founder of the concept of MAGA, leading us, doing great on trade, doing great on foreign policy, doing great on economic policy, but he can only be in so many spots at a time. Then we look at where he's got to delegate, right? So Donald Trump's, the areas that he specializes, there's no one close. No one close. The areas that he doesn't focus because it's not his specialty that he's delegating, look at the problems we're having. Look at the DOJ right now, particularly. And we all know that Trump doesn't have a whole lot of love for lawyers, for good reason. If you're for good reason, if you're Donald Trump, right? But here's the thing: that DOJ is the single most important cabinet in the United States in terms of ensuring honesty, transparency, and accountability on the federal level. There is no one else that can do what they can do. It's DOJ or bust when it comes to putting these bad guys in jail, when it comes to shutting down these criminal networks, when it comes to stopping these guys, and particularly when it comes to stopping public corruption. Now, when we look at these different things, that is the core of it. Listen. Let's look at, because I know that you're very active and your organization's very active in Tina Peters' case. And by the way, let's plug your organization. Give us a quick plug on I got you guys. Where'd I got you guys? I got you somewhere in here. American Rights.
While you're looking for that, I got to say something, Tom. I'm starting to fear. Oh, sorry. I'm starting to fear that Pam Bondi is a better figured shaved leg and a wig version of Bill Barr.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at right here. I mean, because listen, honestly,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I hope I'm not asserting that. I hope that's not the case.
I've said it because, listen, Matt Gaetz gets crucified when they talk about him as AG. Bondi just sails right through the confirmation, right? That's a bad sign to me. The fact that she was tied.
Ed Martin crucified.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But Ed Martin looks like a real good dude, right? Now, he's still got a position. He's still doing things, but he's going to be pretty tightly constrained in that position, right? Listen, you put the person in charge and you look at the fight. If there's no fight, that's probably the wrong person, because I do believe, listen, what was the number one thing that they have used to counter Donald Trump to this point? Lawfare. right? I believe part of the strategy coming in was to use this lawfare to shut down Trump's agenda. Well, the most important thing they'd have to do then is make sure that the DOJ can't counter this lawfare. I've fought the DOJ under Biden extensively, and I'm going to tell you that is one powerful crew to fight. It is an ugly fight. Every time I got to go in against the DOJ, I know what it's going to look like, and it's never pretty. But these guys have so much power. It's mind blowing, and they have an endless resources. There is no short, yeah. I mean, they want to bring a case. They got the best, the brightest, and endless resources to put on it. Guys, everybody else, it's an uphill battle. So when you control the DOJ, you control everything. And again, when we look at taking out public corruption, and we can look at people like Tina Peters, we can look at some of these other cases that you guys are involved in. The DOJ could make or break it if they put their thumb on the scale a little bit. Now, in Tina Peters' case, we've got them putting in an interested party filing. Okay, that's nice. And maybe it gets in, maybe it doesn't. But what sort of investigation has the FBI done to determine whether or not any of the stuff that Tina Peters brought out was actually accurate? Was there any criminal investigation? Was there any public corruption investigation? Have they followed up? The DOJ's got things they could do to help Tina.
Let me weigh in on that. Now, I will say, out of the Attorney General's office and the Department of Justice, there is work being done on Tina Peters. I'll give credit where credit's due all day.
Please do.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm thrilled to hear that. I worked
with those people after I filed the original amicus. I wrote the amicus for her in February after her sentencing. I wrote an amicus for her for her appellate case. Yeah. We missed a date. I got a deadline. Unfortunately, I tell people, I'm not a lawyer, but I do pretty good work. I'm a fair to middle and paralegal at this point, right? So let me point to this part. So after I wrote the amicus brief for her, that got the attention of the Attorney General's office. They called. They want to know where I got that information. We had discussions. I've had continual discussions with their office on this matter. I'm no longer in discussion with them because Peter has come on as lead counsel. And I work with Peter Tickton, so we're no longer in discussion.
And Peter's a brilliant guy. He's a great attorney. He's a good guy.
Yes.
So I mean, that's a good guy to have as an intermediary.
Yeah, I believe, and look, I don't say I believe. I know for a fact that there's things happening over there. I believe there are people in there that are seeking justice. When I asked the question, and I brought this to the table. I said, "Why do I want to trust you guys? What makes you different than before?" I don't know. Some of you have worked there before. Some of you are long timers. Some of you are new. I looked into each of the attorneys I had that meeting with, and the answer to me was really clear. This ain't your granddaddy's DOJ. Things are different, right? Okay, I'll give it that. I believe some people there are justifiably doing the right thing to seek justice. But here's a great question on Tina Peters. The FBI raided her home. That wasn't the Mesa County PD, right? No. Or sheriff. That was not Mesa PD or Mesa County Sheriff's Office. Right. Her home was raided by the FBI, which, as you all know, and the audience should recognize quickly, that took the feds, right? Because the DOJ went in for that warrant. They got it from a federal judge. They didn't go get it from the county clerk's office down at the local magistrate. That was a federal warrant that brought the FBI to her home. It's the simplest question of all. If Tina Peters, people that can't figure out the supremacy clause, which we'll get into and talk about that. If Tina Peters committed a crime, the crime that they would say she committed, why did the FBI, why did the DOJ not charge her with a crime, get their federal indictment, and move and proceed forward to litigate a criminal case against her? Because what she did was consistent with her duty. Period. The end. Now, she wasn't arrested or charged on these issues. She was arrested for lying to the public official or deceiving a public official in person, blah, 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 blah. But you know this, Tom, and I'm sure your audience is probably educated on good faith. Yep. Good faith was the only bar she had to pass to preserve data in a federal election. So move forward from good faith and go into this issue. The low bar, why didn't she just go up the ladder, go to General Griswold's Secretary of State? Why didn't she just go to the governor's office? Why didn't she go up the chain of command? The answer is she did go up the chain of command on this issue. She attempted to. They shut her down, said, no, we're doing our trusted build, right, with the machine. And rather or not it's people at the office or the machines are run or the corporation or headquarters of these various voting and election machine places, or it's simply vulnerabilities that are that people take advantage of, advantageously used for nefarious purpose. Whatever the case may be in that process, the bottom line is she had a good faith reasoning to preserve data, right? And all she had to have in good faith was the thought or belief that criminal conspiracy, RICO, they didn't have to rise to that there was anything inconsistent with her duties in a federal election process to make sure all data was preserved by the rule of law set out by the federal government. Therefore, just like Norma Jean Anderson et al., right, which was the Colorado ballot case where they tried to remove Trump from the ballot in Colorado, just like that case, Norma Jean Anderson applies. The supremacy clause is going to kick in, and the state does not have the authority to interfere in a federal election matter. And that's what they've done. Everything that's coming on this oral argument, July 22nd on Tina Peters, since we came in, we've completed the appellate brief. And listen, I don't want to take credit for things we didn't do with Peter and I. Peter's as the counsel. I'm the paralegal and legal investigator for this. It goes through all this and brings it in. Obviously, I'm not explaining it to you, Tom, but to the audience. I understand how this works. When I went through all of this and I understood this information and came to Peter with it, I knew where we stood on this case. It was very obvious. It's very cut and dried and simple, in similarities to Norma Jean Anderson. Now, here we go with this issue. Right now, we've completed the appellate brief. Stephanie Lambert, John Case, Pat McSweeney, fantastic guys, fantastic legal team that was working on our case. Far it be different from Scott Gessler and his efforts. Remember, Scott Gessler was in charge of Trump's case, Norma Jean Anderson et al. I'm sorry. I'm sure Scott Gessler is a very capable attorney, but for whatever reason, he's missed key arguments and components or didn't choose to raise them that everybody else on the legal team thinks were paramount and should have been raised.
That's pretty peculiar when that happened.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, I was unimpressed with what he was doing in representing Donald Trump. There was other attorneys urged that team to get in touch with me as an expert on January 6th. And it was right out of the gate, opening arguments. Boom, we nailed them. I filed the motion to intervene. We are the ones that proved that case and showed what was wrong with the case. And Norma Jean Anderson, I was the legal team, John Mosley, myself, George. We were the only ones to get all 5 points of the Supreme Court ruling on Norma Jean Anderson et al. Correct. So, it used to be when you looked up Condemned USA, my prior organization that was representing only January 6th defendants, when you looked up Condemned USA, you saw right-wing conspiracy theorists, Trennis Evans, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Now, when you go to Condemned USA, the very first thing you see is United States Supreme Court. So it's very different in how fast that happened when we were only people to get all 5 points right, did countless interviews on the topic. But when you get into Tina Peters and where we're headed, you have oral arguments coming July 22nd on the habeas motion that's been filed. That's in the federal district court. There is numerous things. I don't want to talk about the legal strategy there. Peter and I've had a conversation, again this morning. We are working on that. We're working with Tina's previous legal teams. We're working with the existing legal team, and Peter will make a decision. And God help Peter in making the best decision to carry Tina Peters' argument to make sense of this to the federal judge. That is July 22nd in Colorado. I certainly hope people show up and see that in Colorado and Denver and the district court there. That come to visit there. There's more information coming on that. But, Tom, there's a case that, like you mentioned, James O'Keefe, right?
Yeah.
And I want to touch on James. James O'Keefe is fantastic.
This is huge because O'Keefe really, I got to be honest with you. So when O'Keefe and what was this company?
Project Veritas
split ways. There was so much drama behind the scenes. I had people asking me to get involved with this, get involved with that. And, behind the scenes, it was just drama everywhere. Now, here's the thing, though. It looked fishy to me on a lot of levels. I don't know what was going on there. And I didn't get involved with it in any way, shape, or form because I just didn't feel like it was, I don't know. I just didn't have the time, I think, at the time. But I'm really interested to hear about this because the O'Keefe drama continues. Someone really doesn't like James.
Yeah, the left. I mean, think about this. I mean, you're talking about the guy that's probably responsible for more embarrassing moments for Democrats, politicians, bureaucrats, that to come out where they get, I guess people call this catfishing or other things or different things. I don't know that that's the right terminology, but I hear these terms. What I do know as an undercover investigative journalist with things like button cams and, purse cameras and what have you, these people that are part of illegal activity, criminal behavior, corrupt behavior, things that certainly carry civil liabilities, and they're undermining. Like there's a gentleman named Jamie Menina is their most recent case, right? And what happens? James O'Keefe, one of his undercover journalists, I think she's labeled as Heidi Doe in this deal, right? So uh, it comes out and they go after this person, sits down with an individual that was working as a Booz Allen contractor. But don't forget, the history of the individual was former FBI. So they were FBI. They're working as a Booz Allen contractor at the Pentagon. This person comes out on video from this discussion they're having at a table in a public space in a restaurant. This isn't somewhere where you have an expectation of privacy. First Amendment. DC is a one-party recording state, which means I can sit down and record a conversation, whether it be over the phone or in person with Tom here, anytime I so choose, right? As long as I didn't do it where there was an expectation of privacy in the bathroom, in the bedroom, etc. So what happens is this individual, the journalist, sits down and gets this person, and they spill their guts about this. Then Mark Zaid, there's a name you've heard before. Mark Zaid, another one of these leftist, low-life lunatic attorneys, right, files a case for Jamie Menina saying that James O'Keefe somehow violated the federal wiretap laws. That James O'Keefe and OMG Media, it used to be Project Veritas, and after the split, he became OMG Media, O'Keefe Media Group, that somehow he's violated the federal wiretap.
OMG.
Yeah, well, O'Keefe Media Group. God has a sense of humor, and apparently, James certainly gets into it pretty good. So Here we go. Let's go into this. So they come out with the case saying that he's violated federal wiretap laws, expectation of privacy, all this nonsense, and they want to sue James O'Keefe. I'm telling you, when I first read this case, James called me. We talked. He sent this case to me. We had a discussion about him. He was looking for legal representation. So he called me, and I said, "Look, I'm an American Rights Alliance now. We're funded by Don Jr. initially. We got our startup capital from Don Jr., Peter Tickton, Evan Turk. I mean, some fantastic people involved in this." And he says to me, "Trinus, I get this case. They're suing me in D.C. Do you have an attorney? Do you have somewhere to go?" So American Rights Alliance has stepped in. We're taking over the case. The idea is American Rights Alliance is not going to we refuse to have people like James O'Keefe, a journalist, be bludgeoned with lawfare, ruined, and spend all his time on that instead of going out and doing things that are meaningful for the American public. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican or anyone else. People go, "Oh, they went after somebody out of Pam Bondi's office. Oh, they went after this person. I want them to go after everyone. Yeah. Anyone that's corrupt or bad, I don't care what banner you fly or what R or D that you're a libertarian or Republican, Democrat, or whatever banner you wave. If you're corrupt and you're a politician, we want you gone. We want this ended. We want to stamp out this kind of corruption that has taken hold of our American tax dollars, sent it everywhere, and done everything wrong to this country." So back to O'Keefe. Here we are. So I went to Peter with the case. There's a brilliant young man in Peter's office. He's an attorney. He's fantastic. His name is Brent Day. I had sent him concepts of what I saw and what our problems were. Brent Day took those things and made them beautiful. And then now Peter Tickton, running with the case, lead counsel, running this deal. I'm thinking we have a slam dunk here. I can't imagine a judge that allows this case to continue. And I look forward to seeing more people like Mark Zaid should be hit with anti-SLAPP. Stay tuned. I'm hoping that that's where our office is headed. Tickton Law Group's doing that. What's interesting to people is Tickton Law Group is also the same law group that was investigating January 6, 2021 since the day of. They've been involved in that. They've compiled data. They've been housing information on it. Thank God for Peter and his efforts there. It's been very useful to both Donald Trump and the nation. It will continue to be useful, providing our politicians do the right thing and give us some more information. Now, let me say one last thing, and I know you got stuff to say on this. So this can't happen. Journalists can't be attacked for doing journalism. It doesn't matter if it was done with a button cam or a giant camera on the shoulder and a microphone in your face. It's journalism. It's First Amendment, and the First Amendment is first for a reason, free speech. this attack by Mark Zaid is a serious affront to that. And I don't
Well,
think he would have the courage to even file a case like that if it were not in DC.
yeah, well, there's no question. There's a lot of issues. I mean, that DC court is a little bit rough right now. I mean, we've seen what Boasberg's been doing, and I mean, he's the chief judge there. So, I mean, it's more than a little rough. It's been just downright ugly. But this is a court that has demonstrated its willingness to seek political solutions rather than legal solutions over and over again. And yeah, I mean but that goes to the political issue that we're having, and why it is that I think that the president himself really needs to focus a lot more. He may not like lawyers, but he needs lawyers. And he
Yeah.
needs good ones that have his back, and he needs people who are fearless and untouchable. Yeah, I'm glad Tickton's there because Tickton is a good dude, and I will tell you, I know Peter well enough to know that guy wouldn't sell out for anything.
No.
That
He believes
he's
in
a
the
man
fate
of
of the
principle.
country.
Yeah, he's
He
a man of
believes this is
principle.
about our, American Rights Alliance and the efforts with Tickton Law Group and what we're doing in there in any of these cases are about the future of this country. They are about our children today and
100%.
future generations. And he like, I'm telling you this, you couldn't put him in a room with rubber hoses and beat him, day and night and waterboard the guy into doing the wrong thing. He wouldn't do it.
No.
I know Peter. I've worked with Peter countless hours. He's also representing, of course, Peter and Mark McCloskey have the big case on J6 that they're doing the large class action there that's being represented. So thank God for them for that. That's where I signed up, and that's what I'm doing. I hope everybody makes a choice and goes their own route and does what they need to do. But whatever it is, good for them. Now, Tom, I know we don't have that much time, but I've got to get into a case that
Please, please. This is important, and you're hitting really important things. And I agree with you. Listen, the O'Keefe stuff can't be overstated. Before we jump into that next one, we'll keep going here. But the O'Keefe stuff, I don't want to gloss over that. When you start going after journalists for doing journalism, that's it's just another form of censorship. It's the same censorship that we had under Biden. And look at what that did for us with COVID, with J6, with all this stuff. The censorship has to be just completely shut down, period, across the board in every way, shape, and form. I mean, we're still dealing with it. I mean, you still got AI and these different algorithms that are certainly limiting and diminishing reach for anybody talking about certain things. I mean, no question. I'm guessing we'll see our reach fairly diminished on this show because we're hitting a few sensitive topics. J6 election. All I got to do is talk about it, throw some mRNA stuff in there, and we'll hit every single censored topic there is. But I mean, those algorithms, if they're done legally, independently by a private entity, that's one thing. But how much leverage are there still government agencies? Are there still corrupt officials in the government leveraging their position to push these guys a little bit towards that? And the answer is we don't know. We'd like to think that stopped because Donald Trump issued an order that it stops. But I mean, Donald Trump has issued a lot of orders, including that the Epstein stuff be made public, and this hasn't happened. So I mean, when you've clearly got people in the government that aren't listening to the president, and so the question is how much of that's still occurring, and we don't really know the answer, but it's a call to action, right? Because one thing that I think you'd agree with me on, we love Trump, and he's doing a great job. But if we want to see MAGA succeed, it is the duty of every single American to get involved, to stay active, and to support. Not just to say, yeah, I like Trump, but to support, to share, to call these guys to the carpet. When you see something bad happening, Trump can't be everywhere all the time. He can only be in so many spots at once. It is our duty to support the president by standing behind and calling out these guys when they're not, just because Trump puts them there doesn't mean they're perfect. And we the people have to keep an eye. We're the watchmen that have to be, sounding the alarm when the British are coming.
Well, Tom, and look, you and I've broken bread together a number of times, and we've
Yep.
been friends now for some years. We met back on, I think Clay Clark speaking to her, General
Been a
Flynn,
minute.
some years ago. I don't know. I'm assuming that's probably where we first met, somewhere sitting in a green room and discussing legal concepts. And I always, appreciated your input. You've been one of the people that I've been able to bounce some things off of over time and say, hey, what do you think about this? Am I on the right track, or would you go a different direction? One thing I'm sure of is, like you're saying here, that we, the people, are the illuminating path. We can be involved. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a paralegal. You don't have to be a legal investigator. So much good journalism's done out there. So I would say this: any journalist, if you're being attacked, you're a journalist and you're being attacked, you're a parent, your parental rights are being undermined by the state somewhere, these things are happening to you, call us at American Rights Alliance. Go on the website, contact us. And those of you that aren't experiencing those attacks, support those people, because it's your donations that enable us to be able to say yes to these people when these things happen. And it's critical. They go, well, they'll get somebody somewhere, right? It depends on who you want them to have, because you're talking about precedent setting cases like the one I'm going to open into now is Shayna Gaviola. Listen, I'm going to touch Shayna Gaviola's case, and this is going to make you, if this doesn't give you heartache and heartburn.
I don't know this case. This one's a new one to me.
Yeah, this one's new. It was new to me. And ironically, so the judge, I'm going to start with the judge. Judge Thurston is the judge's name. And Tom, you'll remember this judge because she's the judge that sent a January 6th defendant to prison on the day the pardons are issued. Then she sat on the case for months, wouldn't do anything, over a month. And Ben Martin was finally released when she recused herself. So she could go to trial. She could do the entire case. She could have sentencing. She could do all of this. Here are the motions for appeal. All of that, bond appeals and stuff. She could do all of that. But when it came time to issue the pardon, it was the office of the executive authority, right? Plenary power granted to the office of executive authority. When it came time to do that, she said no. She sent Ben Martin to prison. He sat there for weeks on end. And at the end of the day, we ended up with a situation where the chief judge of the district there had to then step into the case and free Benjamin Martin from prison. That's how bad this is.
She recused herself?
She did. She recused herself.
Where did she recuse herself?
The chief judge.
So I mean, that to me is a clear violation of law. I mean, she has a duty. If she has an affirmative duty under the law to recuse herself early on if there's a conflict. So for her to
not just to recuse herself, if she didn't like the outcome of a presidential pardon or what was said, she would not provide that relief to Ben Martin. Now,
then I would argue that's evidence that she had a duty to recuse herself early on, and someone should investigate her. DOJ, where are you at?
Well, here we go. It gets worse. It's the same judge that ruled that ICE has to have a warrant to make an arrest. This is a judge that somehow has such a lack of an understanding of how our branches of government work and the authorities granted within that thinks that it's really simple. ICE is law enforcement, period, the end. That's it. They fall under law enforcement. That's what they are. End of story. That's a law enforcement organization. So you're telling a law enforcement organization, you're setting a precedent that it's just say you find me throwing a rock through a window. An officer can't arrest me until he goes somewhere and gets a warrant from a judge. No, you get arrested right then on the spot because you committed a crime. But because she is ideologically aligned with the left and she doesn't believe that they should be granted, and that she believes that illegals aren't really illegal. Nobody's illegal. She comes with this idea because ideologically she falls to one side of the aisle as opposed to what she clear understanding of the law. She doesn't believe that illegally entering our country is illegal. I mean, it's like the Boy Scouts argument with Shapiro years ago, where, why do they have to be Boy Scouts? And he's like, it's in the name, Boy Scouts, right? I mean, very simple, right? So it's the simplest argument, and yet these judges find a way to manipulate around, speak around, and double talk and get it wrong. But it gets worse. So here's Shayna Gaviola is in front of this very judge. Shayna Gaviola in front of this judge. Here's the story. Single mother of 4, moves her family from Tennessee. Her first husband, she was divorced. She got married young, didn't work out so well. She finds later, marries another gentleman, and then he dies in an accident. Now she's a single mother of 4. I mean, our heart should already be going out to this lady, and she's doing a great job. She's supporting 4 children. They're doing well in school. Everything's going well. And she now decides that she wants to take on becoming an RN so she can better provide for her 4 children. She doesn't want to be one of these slobs on welfare laying around and getting state money or government money or our tax dollars. She wants to go to work and educate herself further to be able to do better by her family. Right? Shayna Gaviola. You're a true believer that this is an American that bleeds red. This is the kind of people we support. Here we go. So here's what she does. She moves across the state, across the country to California. She finds out that, it's just certain things are slipping. Grades aren't going so well with Junior. A couple of issues going on there at home. She's worried about. 3 other kids are doing great. One of them the same age, right? Because it's a blended family scenario. Yeah. And she goes down to the school to the counselors and says, hey, counselor, there's a problem here. What's going on with my son, my 14-year-old? The counselor says, oh, well, we're working to transition the child. Wait, she says, excuse me, what? Yeah. She's, blown away. She says, well, no, we're not doing that. Oh, under California law.
Yep.
And under Biden's policies, right? He put all those counselors in the schools. Yep. Under California law, Biden's policies. What happens here, this, like-minded ideological affront to Western culture or Christian values and parental rights. Yeah. They tell her that she doesn't have any rights. They work to help the child continue with this. And you know what? The program here, the process is to be that it starts with counseling. Then it becomes medications, puberty blockers, and hormones. Then it becomes surgical castration or chemical castration up until then we so-called gender reassignment surgeries. And you hear, but guess what? Now, this is the same kind of child, 14 years old. They can't go down to the mall and get a piercing, right? They can't get a tattoo.
Get a piercing.
Can't buy alcohol.
Can't buy a beer. Can't buy a gun. Can't join the military.
Can't buy a gun. Can't join the military. Can't do anything else, but we can allow you to make a permanently life-changing decision, not something that will affect you for today or tomorrow or a couple hours, but for all the time. We won't allow you to do that. Where are my Christians at? Where are my parental rights people? Where are my constitutionalists on this? I think you got to get behind this case, and here's why. So what she does when she's faced with a temporary restraining order that says you can no longer communicate with your child and the school is now and the state are going to take over and run things from here, she abandons her parental rights in the interest of saving the child, right? She signs over custodial rights to a Christian school and says, here you go. Let this school help my child keep him from making some horrific decision that could be life altering and change everything for them. This can't happen. The school in radical California are not going to strip me of my parental rights, my religious liberties, and my beliefs in that my son is my son. He was born in the right body. I'm a Christian woman, and this is where it is. So the child goes to the Christian school in Missouri. The FBI under Biden in 2021 raids the Christian school and Miss Peters' home for child trafficking. This is the child trafficking the Biden administration wants to address. A parent protecting their child from a radical ideology. Now, I have 2 boys, and I'm going to tell you now, my wife and I have talked about this. Sure, millions of Americans, your entire audience that's listening to this right now is listening to this going, what the hell? If my kid came home from school and I went down to the school and the counselor told me that I was anti-LGBTQ and A plus, blah, 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 and it was a hate crime and inconsistent with California law, and they were going to do all these things to my child, I know what my answer to that instantly is, and it's not going to happen. So here's what happens next. She gets her home raided. School gets raided. They shut down the school as a so-called trafficking center.
This is a Missouri school.
Yeah, no evidence of sexual.
Missouri AG getting involved?
Well, there you go. That's where we are. So believe me, I'm on this. I've already sent this case up and said, what the hell are we prosecuting here? President Trump has been very clear on parental rights. He's been very clear on religious liberties. This case should be dismissed. But now let me give you the juxtaposition that I have on this. If it's not this case, Tom, it'll be another one. If it's not Sheena Gaviola, it'll be another one. And people go, well, I live in Oklahoma or I live in Kentucky or somewhere else.
No, it doesn't matter.
It's a federal case and you're setting precedent. If it's allowed to stand under whatever California law was and you set this precedent, you risk harming every child.
This is a critical case if it moves under federal precedent.
It is under
federal law. If this is well, first of all, the real question is, if it's federal, what the hell is our DOJ doing?
Oh, I'm going to give it to you. Here's where it gets better. Here's the real embarrassment. You want to hear, you think you were sick already. So not only that, they wanted to hold her pre-trial because she was too dangerous. While she sat there and watched as transgender people were getting out left and right, illegals that committed violent crimes, sexual assaults, all kinds involved in trafficking were getting bond. But Miss Gaviola, this prosecutor, you can't make this up. His name is Tierney. The prosecutor, the AUSA's name is Tierney. Michael Tierney. I want the American people to know
How is
this
this
name.
guy still employed?
Well, this is a great question. This goes back to what we just talked about with FBI and stuff like this, right? Now, this is the DOJ, but you're talking about the FBI when they run cover and say, oh, there are many fine men and women here. They were just under bad leadership. No, they were a part of it. Not everyone was just subjected to bad leadership. Some of these people carried water for this. Some of these people flew this banner. Some of these people walked along and said, let's do this, right? And
You know what, Travis? This is it. This is why I'm telling you, Bondi is in charge. This is on her. It is sitting on her lap. This is her problem, and she is allowing. It's like SDNY, Southern District of New York. They're holding the Epstein files hostage. Do you think they weren't deleting things? But has there been any investigation into that place? Has there been any No. They put Maureen Comey, who through the previous Epstein case, James Comey's daughter, on the Diddy trial. This is absolutely absurd. This what you're telling me, and now we've got another assistant attorney general or assistant district attorney through the DOJ prosecuting a mom for not wanting her kid to go through gender mutilation surgery.
It gets worse.
This is insane.
Tom, this story is about to get worse. I know that you can't believe this right now. Here you go. Michael Tierney. I'm the legal investigator and paralegal on this. I've read the evidence statement, the witness statements. I'm telling you, this is where this is going. Listen to this. He approaches Miss Gaviola in a bar. He approaches her in a bar. And I don't mean the bar in the courtroom. I mean an establishment where she's just finished having food, a happy hour with her friends, and sitting there. And she's
obviously, I'm assuming she wasn't sitting there with her attorney.
No. So, no, she wasn't. But he comes into play. You're never going to believe this story. This is where it gets sick and disgusting. Here you go. So this gentleman comes over. He winks at her from across the bar, tries to smile at her. She finally comes over to her chair and speaks to her. He's been drinking, right? Which is fine. People can go out and drink. There's no prohibition in this country. I don't
care if you haven't drank.
He's been drinking. He comes up to her. He approaches her. Hey, how are you doing? Talks to her and her friends at the table. But he's like leaned in at her chair with him. He's trying to communicate with her. She finally says, I know who you are, as he's trying to introduce himself. You spent the last year of my life ruining my life. I don't want to talk to you. We probably shouldn't even be talking anyway. It's
illegal. It's an ethics
violation. It gets better. Listen to this story, Tom. You're going to die. He says to her, Tierney, the AUSA, Assistant United States Attorney, as long as we don't talk about your case, I think it's okay if we talk. It gets better. You're going to die. She immediately gets up. It's like she's uncomfortable.
I'd be disbarred.
You would. You would be disbarred. Oh, but this guy's up for federal judge. He's up for a Title III judicial appointment. Hold on. Here we go. It's getting better. She walks to the restroom, to the ladies' room. To escape this man has been a predator, right? In his predatory nature, who holds power over her as the AUSA prosecuting her case. She uses the restroom to escape. She comes out of the ladies' room. Michael Tierney is standing outside the ladies' room. I'm telling you, this is a story. These are the witness statements, sworn affidavit. You're going to listen to this. Dying. Comes out. Hey, guess what? Shayna, guess who I have on the phone? I'm talking to Agent Snow. Agent Snow is the FBI agent that raided Miss Gaviola's home. Another fear tactic driven into the stake, driving a stake into the heart of Miss Gaviola. So she escapes this position in the hallway, goes back. She's like, we got to get out of here. I'm going to leave this place. This is getting crazy. She heads for the car outside. Guess who chases her down and approaches her again? Michael Tierney approaches her again. Here you go. This is where it gets incredible. He calls Miss Gaviola. Michael Tierney, the AUSA, utilizes his cell phone to contact Miss Gaviola's defense counsel at 10:30 at night and say, here, phone's for you. Hands her the phone. Shocked, out of bewildered. She doesn't know what to do. She answers her defense counsel and has a conversation with him that I'm not going to share here about this interaction that took place. hands the phone back. She gets in the car. Her defense counsel doesn't think this is an issue that needs to be
What?
raised at trial. So this is why Miss Gaviola calls me. Miss
Oh my
Gaviola gets in
God.
touch with me and says, Mr. Evans, I need help. Can the American Rights Alliance help me? This is what's happening in my case. I'm like you. You're hearing it for the first time. Now, I've been through the sworn affidavit. I've been through the witness statement. I've been through this case backward and forward. And the witness statements add up. It all adds up. Not only this, it still gets worse. Ms.
How?
Gaviola was lied to by previous defense counsel. In my investigation, I got in touch with witnesses from previous, and I can't get into these details yet, Tom. I don't want to be in trouble with Peter on this because George Palace is actually representing this case. George Palace will represent this case for Ms. Gaviola through the American Rights Alliance. Her defense counsel doesn't think that these are issues wants to raise. Come to find out, Michael Tierney is the letter of support and on the Judicial Committee for recommendations for appointment for Title III judges, and has recommended Mr. Tierney for appointment as a federal judge. This man can't be a federal judge. He shouldn't even have a law license, and he should not be around defendants, or he should not be an officer of the court, and these things can't happen. These things can't happen. Michael Tierney should be removed from the case, and the case should be dismissed by the Justice Department, and that's exactly the right thing to happen.
There should be ethics complaints.
Clearly.
I mean, these are ethical issues. There should probably be a lawsuit. Listen, so Trennis, we're at the end we're actually over, but we stayed on because this was really important. Listen, anybody wants to know why I'm fussy with DOJ? There you have it. Well, you say, well, Renz, how can you question? They've got a plan. Bullshit, they got a plan. What? To let crooks get away with being crooks? This is inexcusable. I'm sorry. This is inexcusable. If I behaved like that as an attorney, my license would be gone immediately. Maybe
absolutely.
Sooner. I couldn't even walk through the door of a courtroom like that. But, listen, there's a double standard. Trennis, I want to have you come back soon. I'd love to hear more about this. And by the way, if you'll send me some information on that case, and also if I can help you guys get word out on that case and what's going on or anything else, I'm happy to do it. If I can help you guys in any way, shape, or form on that stuff, you let me know. That is absolutely mind-blowing. I wish we had another hour to do this. I really do, unfortunately.
There's more. And Tom, can I leave one thought with you?
Please.
I get calls for cases of this magnitude regularly now after all what we've done. People are calling me, and I'm having to turn people away because we don't have enough money in the kitty. We got initial funding from Don Jr. He didn't fund every case down the line. No. So we're having to turn some people away because we don't have enough money to take on all these cases. Yes. I want to take every single one of them. I want to go back and fight every piece of lawfare that's been brought upon the American people, what we've been bludgeoned with that jackbooted thuggery that's taken place, and take that boot off our neck and save this republic through fighting back and exposing this. And that's where we need to be. So I hope people will consider American Rights Alliance. We're a 501c3. Don Jr. trusted us with his money. We hope you'll trust us with yours.
Yeah, please support these guys. I can attest to how hard it is to fight this stuff when you're broke all the time, and that's the way it is. So we got to support our people. If you want freedom, it isn't free. You're gonna have to fight for it, and you can fight for it by helping, by sharing, by letting people know about this, and by donating. So please do all those things. Trennis, you're gonna have to come back real soon. Everybody, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you get this one out to people. We need people to see this. Thank you guys for watching, and we will be back.